Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Speaker Brains with the most unprofessional music critics on the internet, Travis, Zach, and Josh. Say what up?
That's right, you heard right. It's episode, 5 or 6?
I think it's 5.
Of the Zappacast, and we are still not done. There's still going to be one more episode.
Yeah, oh man, we were gonna do this in one go, but that's like roughly 17 more albums.
Something like, I think it's like between 13 and 16, and that is not even accounting for the fact that there's like 6 2-hour double discs in a row, not to mention all of the 88 stuff except for Broadway the Hard Way is double discs too, I believe.
Actually, I don't think it is.
Is it? I know at least one of them is. I
think it's Best Band You've Never Heard is double disc.
Yeah, that's a double disc. But like Broadway the Hard Way and Make a Jazz Noise Here are easily like, they are single discs by 90s CD standards.
Well, shit.
Where
See,
it's like,
my fucking Make a Jazz Noise is 2 discs.
See, I thought so. So Broadway the Hard Way is the only one. And Broadway the Hard Way is itself like an hour and 15 long, or no, it's like an hour and 10.
Yeah, it's like filling that damn disc up. Like, there's a lot of, like, we're only going to be talking about 8 albums today, but there's a lot of fucking shit to talk about. Yeah, Broadway the Hard Way is 71 minutes.
Yeah.
But what have you been up to, man, since we did our last podcast together?
Mostly, I have been like, in this situation, I have been fortunate enough to have employment.
Yeah.
And I have been working nonstop. I have not had a weekend off since the end of April.
Damn.
Which is why we have not been able to crank out any more of these podcast episodes. Even though, like, we have, we were talking just the other day, we have 3 or 4 pretty good ideas for Speaker Brains that we could easily do.
Yeah, there's a good handful that you and I want to get to.
Like, we've been talking about, like, maybe some Chemical Brothers, or, like, Crystal Method, or, I was thinking just yesterday, we could both do Fiona Apple.
Yeah, not a bad idea, especially since she's got, well, the new one's already out digitally, but, you know me, I'm waiting on that CD, but,
yeah, I still, for some reason, I have not heard it, like...
Yeah, I'm staying away, because I've got the CD pre-ordered, it's coming out next month. I don't want to spoil anything, because I'm intrigued.
It's not even that. Yeah, it's not. In my case, it's not even that I don't have that mentality of I'm not going to spoil it for myself. I just got pulled away into other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like going on this crazy hip hop odyssey.
Oh yeah.
That I've been on for the last month.
Yeah, I'll go through a hip-hop phase about maybe once or twice a year, and because it's a genre I'm still really picky with, and but right now I'm really getting in touch with my inner 90s kid, man. There's a sound from the 90s that I've been missing since like 97, and I just found a couple of artists that a couple female artists that sound just like the old 90s Riot Girls and have big Babes in Toyland and Whole vibes, and I'm like, holy shit, they are Skating Polly, Bully, and fucking Taco Cat. And Taco Cat are actually from Seattle, and so that, like, it's cool. And like most of these artists are on Sub Pop, and so it's like, oh, we're in like a little renaissance of this sound. And yeah, like Riot Girl bands have been around still, but there's a certain guitar tone, there's a certain scream that I miss, and these girls are fucking hitting it, and I'm fucking digging it.
There's an early 90s guitar tone.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
I really miss, that I don't quite know how to quantify, and not being a musician myself, I don't know how they hit that guitar tone.
I know exactly.
But like,
oh man,
you know what I like? It's like a slightly processed, but it's raw, but it's a little processed. Like if you're on the podcast and you're wondering like what are John and Travis talking about, go listen to. The two examples I would throw out are Pork Soda by Primus. Go listen to Larry Lalonde's guitar on that album. And go listen to Dirt by Alice in Chains.
Yes, exactly. And it's crazy. It was a guitar sound that was being developed in the 80s, and to me, fully grasped in the early 90s. And some more examples would be easily Pixies' Where Is My Mind, that, you know, it's kind of distorted, it's kind of reverby, just very drony, echoey. It's a sound you get with Soundgarden and, like you said, Alice in Chains.
Oh yeah, Soundgarden for sure.
Definitely heavily that sound is on, what is it, Live Through This from Hole. And
oh yeah. Well, I have not heard Hole's first album.
I highly recommend it.
That's like a wild hardcore punk kind of album.
It sounds like a heavier Sonic Youth.
Damn, Sonic Youth kind of had that guitar sound.
Exactly. Like Sonic Youth is definitely one of those bands. Like, seriously.
Like it's just the 90s aesthetic, that early 90s aesthetic it's weird because, you know, I obviously did not live through that time, not even existing at that time. But the visual that comes to mind when I think about that guitar tone is that it's raw, but it's clean. Like it's like if you took your grungy redneck and your Seattle grunge dude who's been living under a bridge, you give him a house, you make him take a shower, you give him new flannels and new jeans, like you clean him up a little bit, and that guitar sound is what you get.
Oh shit! But basically,
Frank Zappa.
Yeah, like fucking what I've been up to here recently is like at my job. Numbers have been down, so we've been getting a lot of time off, and it's looking like we're gonna probably get a free week a month. Last month we had a week off. I'm just finishing up a new week off this week, this month, and it's rad because, you know, whenever they give us a week off, we always do unemployment, and we are getting that extra $600 with that, so that's been really nice. And but it's been giving me a lot of time to work on the music that I've been working on here recently. Zach and I got to get back to the new Sticky Middle Finger album. I've worked on a couple tracks for that, and then I'm still working on tracks for my new solo album, which is called Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. And it is... Stas was showing me this Disney ride where it's like showing you this family throughout the decades, and there's this song, this Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, and as I'm watching this fucking Disney ride, I'm like, Man, that would be a great album title for an album filled with songs about how shitty humanity is. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I like.
The album, if you could, on the off chance you could afford like a really good album cover, it should be like that idea, but like instead of like the progress of humanity, you see like the kids grow up to be drug addicts and the parents divorce.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. But other than that, yeah, pretty much just doing the same old thing, buying music, listening to music, and yeah, I had to do a little Zappa binge to get ready for this podcast. Because the thing is, man, I think we've said it on every one of these podcasts, but once you get past the 70s, it's a fucking slog, and none of these albums are in regular Zappa rotation for me. Except for maybe two. Like, maybe two.
For me, it's like Jazz from Hell and sometimes Broadway the Hard Way. Like, if I'm reaching for any of the and Volume 2, the Helsinki concert.
Yeah.
That those three are out of those. I think we're doing 7 today. Are we?
Yeah, it's actually 8.
Oh, you're right. Out of those 8, those are the only 3 I'm reaching for.
Yeah. Seriously.
Like, and I'll get to this more when we talk about the actual You Can't Do This on Stage Anymore volumes. I kind of like the idea of the You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore series a little more than I like how Frank actually did it.
Yeah, because I'll definitely get into like some gripes when we get there, because man, you know, this is at a point. What is this? 1985? Has he already been diagnosed at this point where we're starting?
I don't think he was diagnosed until 88 or 89.
Shit.
The from what I've heard, their reports differ. I think he announced it to the world in like 89 or 90. I probably closer to 90 or 91. I've heard that he was diagnosed in 89. I've also heard that he was diagnosed as early as 88, and that's part of why the 88 band fell fell apart and basically mutinied on the road.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't like pull the shit together and be like, "No, motherfuckers, we're touring this." Like that, I've heard that he may have known as early as that point, and that may be why he canceled the rest of the tour and let it be the last Frank Zappa tour ever.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I've
heard that he had been having the health problems for years at that point, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Possibly as early as like the late 70s, and that for whatever reason he either wasn't going to the doctors regularly or he couldn't get the right doctors, and by the time they realized what was going on, it was too late.
True. So the first album we are talking about is Frank Zappa Meets the Mothers of Prevention, and I love that album title. Because it's a play on the old Mothers of Invention band name, and it's got this, you know, I like how it's Frank Zappa meets the Mothers of Prevention, whereas the Mothers of Prevention are the PMRC, who were campaigning to require record companies to put warning stickers on their albums. And
yeah, this is the part of my video, like any of these videos I make, that I love and I hate, because like when I went to college I was a history major, I could rant about history for days.
Yeah.
It's also really boring to a lot of people.
It really is. It really is. But
so basically, to give a little background on this, in like 84, it was after Purple Rain came out, Tipper Gore, wife of the then senator from Tennessee and eventual vice president of the United States, Al Gore, she came home one day to find her daughter listening to Prince's mega hit album, Purple Rain.
And Purple Rain is fucking phenomenal.
Purple Rain, oh yeah. There's a song on Purple Rain called Darling, I believe it's Darling Nikki. And it has the line, I met her in the hotel lobby, masturbating with a magazine. And Tipper Gore was incensed by the fact that a major company was peddling such filth to the youth of the nation. So she rallied a bunch of other politicians' wives to form a committee to shut down this outrageous filth, as I think one of the senators at the hearings directly called it.
Yeah.
Basically, there was a big Senate hearing, and it was this crazy controversy. Frank Zappa testified before Congress. I think it was John Denver, and what is his name? The lead singer from Twisted Sister.
Oh, Dee Snider.
Yes, thank you. And if you've watched all of the testimony, it's fascinating because the three of them have completely different approaches.
Yeah.
Because Zappa comes out swinging.
Which you would expect, too.
You would. Like, he takes what was supposed to be Congress interviewing him, and he almost turns it into him interviewing Congress.
Yeah. Love the shit out of it.
Like, he's asking them, I think he felt that it was all a cover to pass a super heavy tax on tape recording to basically stop early piracy in its tracks.
Yeah.
But then you have John Denver, who's going up on there being the good all-American boy and being like, no, my song Rocky Mountain High is not about drugs, it's about beholding the Rocky Mountains, and so on and so forth. But I think Dee Snider is probably the one that really, changed a lot of people's minds, because he went up on stage and basically was like, I'm a normal guy behind this makeup. I am married. I have kids. I am a father of a happy family.
Yeah.
I am not this depraved maniac that you think I am.
Yeah, seriously.
And basically, what came of it is that you got parental advisory stickers on albums, and little kids couldn't go into the record store and buy, I don't know, fucking Cannibal Corpse or...
But you gotta love the...
hardcore.
You gotta love the irony. You gotta love the irony behind it, because it's such a massive backfire, because people started buying albums because they had parental advisory stickers. And I've seen people say, thank you, Tipper, for making me choose some of the best music, and you just gotta love how it just backfired in all their faces.
Oh my god, it backfired, because there's an era of music where it's almost like if you're picking up a heavy album from the late 80s, early 90s, and you're like, this doesn't have the parental advisory sticker, this probably isn't going to be good.
For real.
Or it's the cut copy, and you have some sort of terrible, you have Trent Reznor being like, I want to, you like an animal.
Yeah. And I have, a handful of times accidentally bought cut versions of albums not knowing that, they had parental advisory versions. And once I realized, I'm like, you are less of a thing. I have to buy you again. Fuck.
Even if you only spent $3.
Yeah. For instance,
it's like I could have. I could have bought a soda with that money.
Yeah, for instance, several years ago, I had found what's even crazier is albums that don't have parental advisory, but will have a cuss word on there. For instance, I found a couple years ago the first Cake album, Fashion Nugget, and he says fuck or motherfuckers in the cover of I Will Survive. And I was playing mine, and boom, fucking cut out. I was like, motherfucker. So I never listened to it again. Then I eventually just traded it to Zach for something a couple years ago, because I was like, I see this album all the time at Goodwill's, and I normally don't grab it because I'm like, I don't see a parental advisory sticker. I'm like, does it even have one? What's the deal? Well, I found it a couple weeks ago at Goodwill, and I grabbed it only because there was another Cake album, so I was like, fuck it, I'll get both of them. And it is the uncut version, but still no parental advisories. I was like, alright, that was a risk, and it paid off, but fucking A.
So, sometimes they only it was just a sticker. Like, there were some albums they incorporated it into the art. Like, you can get, like, Down on the Upside by Soundgarden. That doesn't have a parental advisory, and that song has a song where the chorus is, I'm here to fuck you up.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is when I first heard that song many, many years ago, it sounds like he's saying, I'm here to suck you off. I'm here to suck you off.
And it's weird how, like, all these pop punk dudes would swear up a storm on their albums and talk about masturbation, and they wouldn't get parental advisories either. Like,
yeah, it's so weird now because, you know, there could be things, even back then, like, there was Smash from The Offspring. I've never seen it with a parental advisory sticker, but fuck, what song was that where he's like, you stupid, dumb shit, goddamn motherfucker.
The Road Rage song.
Yeah,
I
Bad
forget
Habit.
what it's called, but it's the Road Rage song.
Bad Habit. And, you know,
yeah.
I'm like, that's fucking crazy. And I've bought Nine Inch Nails from Walmart before, and they weren't edited.
Yeah, same.
So it's weird to me. It's what allows that label to be put on an album? I don't fucking understand it. Because another one is I bought Smash Mouth's third album at Walmart because I'm like, these guys don't fucking cuss anymore. You know, it is safe to buy a Smash Mouth album at Walmart. Well, there's a song where he straight up says, quit your bitching about your time or something. And it's left in. I'm like, alright, cool. Then there's another song on that very same album where he says something, I gotta pull it out of my ass, and they straight up cut out ass. And I'm like, why cut one and leave the other? What the fuck?
Yeah, that's why Zappa was so against it, because, like, even going back to the 60s with, like, MGM being like, man, he's talking about a pad. He's got to be talking about a tampon. We can't let him say that.
Yeah, seriously.
So anyway, like, Mothers of Prevention. I love the warning guarantee. I guess he put it on Thingfish too. But it was basically the Zappa version of the parental advisory.
Yeah.
And it reads, warning, warning, this album contains material which a truly free society would neither fear nor suppress. In some socially retarded areas, religious fanatics and ultra-conservative political organizations violate your First Amendment rights by attempting to censor rock and roll albums. We feel that this is unconstitutional and un-American. As an alternative to these government-supported programs designed to keep you docile and ignorant, Barking Pumpkin is pleased to provide stimulating digital audio entertainment for those of you who have outgrown the ordinary. The language and concepts contained herein are guaranteed not to cause eternal torment in the place where the guy with the horns and pointed stick conducts his business. That part's in capital letters. This guarantee is as real as the threats of the video fundamentalists who use attacks on rock music in their attempts to transform America into a nation of check-mailing nincompoops in the name of Jesus Christ. If there is a hell, its fires wait for them, not us.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love the shit out of that. Because this is when you get some angry Zappa shit. Like, his shit gets real mean, especially to the Republicans. Like,
yeah, like he is like calling. I mean, he was also doing that as early as the 70s. It just didn't make it into the albums.
Yeah, and it's just now it's like in the fucking front.
It is front and center, and it's like, because we talked about this a lot last time, how like this is the height of the religious right as like this terrifying force that people were afraid was going to make a theocracy, and that didn't really go away until like the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah, and you know, even with
like
certain scandals that should have brought it all down on its head, it was still
Zappa
big.
wrote a lot of songs about that.
Like, all those guys had to do was say they were sorry and that they repented to God, and man, their fucking sheep were...
Jesus forgave them.
Yeah, their fucking sheep were all back. Like,
and it would have been one thing if they weren't so violent and vicious about condemning everyone else to hell.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
like,
pastor,
I would rather be hanging out with the Davidians and David Koresh than fucking hanging out with Pat Robertson or fucking, Jim Baker.
I would rather be hanging out with David Koresh before the FBI drove tanks into his compound.
Yeah, I would like
gas caught on fire.
Yeah, I'd be like,
I would be
okay,
hightailing it out of there as soon as the ATF showed up.
Yeah, I'd have been like, hey, you guys, I'm about to go get some pizza or something. I'll see you guys later. But I mean, come on.
Well, it's even crazy because like even as like I forget how late into the 90s that this stuff was still going on, because I was watching a Kevin Smith interview the other day where he was saying that the reason that nobody can get Dogma nowadays is that Harvey Weinstein owns that film personally.
Yeah.
Because Miramax's parent company wanted nothing to do with it because they were so afraid that Catholics were going to like firebomb Miramax or something.
Yeah. And my grandparents were so heavily into that televangelist scene. It was TBN channel all day long over there, and they even fell into that. Is it Jim Baker? Jim and Pam Baker? Tammy Faye Baker, and I swear it's Jim Baker. But there was some big scandal about some theme park they had. My grandparents threw a shitload of money into that, and where they were supposed to have like free tickets to the theme park for life, and yeah, nothing came out of that.
Yeah.
Fucking idiots.
Damn.
Fucking idiots. But
so this album it's another one. It's like Man from Utopia. I don't understand why, but Frank heavily screwed with this one after it was released.
Oh yeah?
There were two versions of it. There was an American version which starts with We're Turning Again,
yeah,
and I believe it ends with Aerobics and Bondage.
Mm-hmm. And
it's We're Turning Again, Alien Orifice, Yo Cats, What's New in Baltimore, Little Beige Sambo, Porn Wars, and Aerobics and Bondage. And then there's
it's missing like 3 tracks.
Exactly. There's a European version that I believe takes off Porn Wars.
Yeah.
And adds, I don't even care One Man, One Vote, and HR 2911. And I believe he felt that Porn Wars wouldn't be relevant over in Europe, that his European fans would have no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Because HR 2911 is, you could in many ways see it as Porn Wars with all of the audio samples cut out.
And a good
like
9 minutes cut off.
Monologue in the center cut out.
A good old 9 minutes chopped off of it, too.
Yeah.
But luckily, all the reissues have those 3 tracks, and it feels more complete, but then at the same time, this album to me it's a mixed fucking bag.
The thing I hate is that it added those 3 tracks, but it, like, messed with
the sequence.
The track listing.
Yeah.
Like, he completely altered the sequence, because the original American version flows way better than the version that we all own on CD today.
Yeah, but thankfully...
Returning Again is a way better album opener to me than I Don't Even Care.
Yeah, which... I fucking love that song, I Don't Even Care. It's a little long for 4 minutes and 39 seconds. Like, it is not going many places. But I like the jam on it. I like that track. Johnny.
I dig the groove.
Yeah, exactly.
And I dig that it's Johnny Guitar Watson coming back.
Yeah, and it's a really good track. It's very average 80s Zappa shit. Like, it is not doing anything new. But it's fun.
That's what this album is to me. It's like, it's half an album of average 80s rock Zappa and half an album of amazing early Synclavier Zappa.
Yeah, exactly. See, I got a couple notes here. I wrote notes on many of these albums. It's got really good Synclavier tracks. And I really like We're Turning Again. It is a pretty relevant track, especially today.
Oh yeah, like, to me, out of the rock stuff on here, the 2 standout tracks, the 2 things I would keep are We're Turning Again and What's New in Baltimore.
Yeah, What's New in Baltimore is one of those beautiful fucking, like, Zappa tracks.
And it's interesting because it's like one of the few times you could look at, like, maybe this had a deeper meaning to him because he was born in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I think he was raised for at least the first couple years in Baltimore. He had memories of the place. Like, you could easily say he grew up in California because he basically did.
Yeah.
But he had memories of Baltimore, and that track is one of those where you wonder, like, is this like some good feeling he had left? Because, like, what I love about that track is that the first half is so, like, mysterious and almost threatening. Yeah. And then it builds and builds, and it turns into that, like, guitar solo, which is just
this very gospel-y moment.
Yeah, this very, like, I have seen the light, you know, the heavens have parted and the light from above is shining down into my third eye kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very angelic.
It is.
And
then, it's one of the, go ahead.
I was going to move to another track, but finish what you were saying.
You know, it's like Watermelon and Easter Hay, and
yes.
It's one of the few times you get a defined emotion from Zappa because like he comes across in his interviews and in his music as a very cold man.
Yeah.
At least in the sense that normal people look at it,
yeah.
you know.
There's a lot of raw ass emotion in his guitar solos on that song.
And when you get those sustained emotions in those tracks are always like some of the greatest Zappa tracks to me.
Yeah, because you feel it, man. You really do. Like
it's like you earn that release with Zappa. Like with a lot of like prog artists, they're throwing that stuff out there left and right.
Yeah.
But you earn that catharsis with Zappa, and King Crimson are a lot like that too. That's one of the things I like about King Crimson. But yeah, so that's about all I have to say about that track.
Yeah. Oh, but Alien Orifice is another favorite because it is almost up there with like the good 70s Zappa tracks for me. Like it has that kind of like sleazy lounge rock. Yeah.
Vibe a lot of the 70s stuff did.
Yeah, then Yo Cats, I really like Yo Cats because it's this cool little crooner thing.
It used to annoy me when I first bought this album, and again, I think it's the sequencing, you know, when I forget what the track listing of the revised album is, because it's one of those deals where, like...
Yeah, the new version, it's track 7. Like, you're halfway done with the album by the time it comes in, if you buy the album now. But back then, it was like track 3.
I'm one of those guys where if an album's track listing has been altered from when it was originally released... When I put it on my computer, I will change it to the original track list.
I know, I feel you there, because it is annoying.
Because when you're in the revised edition, you are 2/3 of the way through the album, and then you have to listen to Ike Wills being like, "Yo, guys, for 3.5 minutes.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's like, when it's track 3, though?
Yeah.
It's perfect.
You're getting it out of the way.
It's a fun little diss track towards session musicians.
Yeah.
Because he's basically like, you go to music school, you study all this stuff just to play a bass line for some pop diva or like a TV incidental music, you know?
Yeah. And
although if you get the right composer on your TV instrumental music, you know, you could be a legend, considering how people relentlessly masturbate over I forget what the Italian gentleman's name is who did the Twin Peaks score. But,
oh yeah, I can Angelo Badalamenti. I can never pronounce his name.
Something like I don't even attempt when I don't have the names in front of me because I know.
I just like butchering names.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun too. But yeah, it's which one is it? Is it Aerobics and Bondage? Little Beige Sambo and Aerobics and Bondage I love because they're sort of the start of like his weird pseudo dancey computer music synclavier stuff.
Yeah, and this man, when it comes to the synclavier, I swear he is putting so much information into this machine that it is about to explode and just break down, because he's got to be using that machine to its full fucking limits. Because I guarantee you, I haven't heard the synclavier really be used outside of Zappa, but I guarantee you, if I have heard anything, none of it is probably as interesting as the way Zappa used that machine.
You've heard it, but not used the way Zappa did, and I'll tell you why. Because it was a part of the studio apparatus, the cutting edge studio apparatus of the early to mid 80s. And the way Zappa used it, it had a function where you could read scores.
Yeah.
It could play scores. No, to my knowledge, nobody else used it.
It reminds me of those
because,
crazy MIDI tracks that are popular on YouTube, where like people are just throwing so much shit into this MIDI stuff, to where it's like almost making you feel sick.
Yeah. Or where people are doing like the Vine Sauce dude on that one video where you're feeding every note of the John Cena theme into MIDI and it's playing it all on keyboards.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and it's just like crashing. It's like hitting a piano with a sledgehammer over and over again and layering that.
Yeah, seriously. Oh man.
Like, because it's like this. You have heard the synclavier because Genesis used it in the 80s.
Okay.
I know they used it on their self-titled. I don't know if they used it on Invisible Touch, but I know it's on their self-titled, which very much like Mothers of Prevention. That's another album that is half and half to me. Like, half of it is good 80s Genesis, and half of it is like bullshit failed experiments that do not sound good at all.
But two other really standout tracks to me on here is definitely Porn Wars and HR 2911. Like, Porn Wars is easily motherfucking proto-industrial, because like industrial was like just in its infancy at this point, but with the very computerized, very what's the word I'm looking for? Not aggressive, but abrasive. The very abrasive music.
That's a good way to put it.
With samples, government samples, and the manipulation in there too. Like, Porn Wars has crazy throwbacks to Lumpy Gravy that I love.
Yeah! It has a Thingfish cameo in the middle of it. Like, the Thingfish shows up for like a minute.
Yeah.
And he's like, I love that how I want to say it ends. I don't remember. But he's like, you may not believe this, but I is your future.
Yeah, I is your future.
Or something like that.
And it is...
The thing is, like, industrial music had been around for...
At least 79.
Maybe 6 or 7 years, because Throbbing Gristle were a thing by this point.
Yeah,
had been a thing for a minute. I think Coil had formed by that point.
Yeah, it was very much still in its infancy.
Neubauten existed. I mean, KMFDM had made their first album that is apparently lost to the sands of time somehow.
Yeah. Apparently
by this point.
All the tapes got burned, but he had re-recorded it about several years ago. And
you know, like people, like, and a lot of, like, the crazy thing to me is a lot of early synth pop kind of has that weird early electronic music sound. Like, it's not grimy and abrasive, but it's that, you know, they're using sequencers, they're using things that sound like sequencers. You know, it's very artificial. It's
very related to industrial, like.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so, like, what's so crazy with this song is the things this song does, you start hearing in a lot of industrial music after this. The crazy edits, the crazy tape manipulation, the crazy... especially government samples. Like, Ministry made a career off of government samples.
Yeah, they did. Well, it's like hip-hop. Like, you listen to Public Enemy's early stuff. You listen to 3 Feet High and Rising by De La Soul. You listen to Ice Cube's first album, where over the course of one track, the Bomb Squad are flipping maybe like 20 different samples.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those situations where I think I said this last time, and I compared it to Todd Rundgren's a cappella album. If I believed that Zappa, A, was following any of that stuff, and B, that anybody who wasn't a mega fan was following Zappa at this time, I would say this was crazy influential and plugged into what was happening on the underground at the time.
Easily.
But because I know that A, Zappa was holed up in his little cabin in California dismissing almost anything that was new, and B, I know that the only people who were listening to Zappa in the 80s who would go on to be influential were guys like Primus.
Yeah.
It's just an oddity that exists in isolation, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. But then HR 2911 is another really cool Synclavier track. It's up there with the creepy Synclavier shit that was off of, what was that first album that he had did with the Synclavier?
The Perfect Stranger. It's very Jonestown.
Yeah. And it's something that I could play on Halloween when I'm passing out candy for the kids. It is a creepy sounding track. And that's some of my favorite Synclavier stuff of his, is when it just gets just unnerving and sounds like a pseudo horror movie score.
I just picture the kids being, you come to the door dressed like the Babadook, playing weird Synclavier music, handing out candy.
Oh yeah. But what would you rate this album, man?
Oh man, I've got to give it a 7.
Yeah.
I gotta give it a 7 because it has more stuff that I like than stuff that I don't like. It's easily half and half, but I don't mind the other half. It's not like Man from Utopia or Ship Arriving Late to Save a Drowning Witch, where the half I don't like is grating and annoying to me.
Yeah.
It's what I don't like on here, I can listen to get to the stuff I do like.
Yeah, true that. I'm going with a 6. Pretty much for the same reasons, but I'm being a little harder on it because it's not much of a slog to get through, but it's one I'm not fucking with all that much. Along with a lot of these coming up.
It's one where if you haven't ever listened to the original sequencing of it, I would recommend it because it changes the album. If I'm rating the version that Frank put out before he died, it probably is a 6 too.
Ah.
Because the sequencing changes that whole album. If it ends with Aerobics and Bondage and then you have 3 bonus tracks, that's one thing. But if you're listening to it the way Frank put it out before he died on CD, that version of the album is a 6. I can agree with that. So it's sort of a conditional rating, you know.
Yeah, easily. So the next album is Guitar.
Does Humor Belong? Oh, Guitar. You're right.
Which not much to say about this. It's
another one and done to me.
Exactly. All it is just like the Shut Up and Play Your Guitar series, where it's interesting where he pulls guitar solos of his out of live songs and just kind of turns it into its own song. And that's interesting, but I'm a lot of times,
give me the full performances, you know.
Yeah, a lot of times, my favorite stuff with live Zappa isn't the guitar solos. I mean, I want everybody because everybody was so good.
Yeah, it's like my thing with with live Zappa, I should say, and I'll talk about this more when we get to the You Can't Do This on Stage Anymore albums, is I love live Zappa when he's showing me that his bands can perform these incredibly elaborate and technical tracks on stage.
Yeah.
I am less
and they're all
of a fan
laughing
of Zappa
and having fun and joking
like,
while they do it.
Exactly, and I'm not so much of a fan of Zappa when he's doing the Grateful Dead thing and the Fish thing of like, all right, we just did the front end of our song. It's time for me to do a guitar solo for 35 minutes, man. And he did that a lot in the 80s.
Yeah, and
I'm sure he did it. I'm sure he did it in the 70s too, but I haven't heard those albums.
yeah, like the Guitar series, buy them if you're a completionist, buy them. But yeah, they are easily one and done. Just straight up one and done.
Yeah.
It gets a 5 from me.
I'm gonna rate it the same. It's basically shut up and play your guitar 4. And I honestly forget that it exists.
Oh my
I've listened
God.
to it maybe once.
Oh my God, we did skip ahead.
I told you,
Oh my God.
But
Glad it's out of the way.
It shows you how forgettable
Yeah, and
this humor and belong in music really is.
I've got the discography right here in my face too on Wikipedia, and yeah, you were right. The next album is, I'm just glad we got Guitar out of the way, because there's nothing interesting about it.
Yeah, because the only thing I will say about Does Humor Belong in Music that is notable to me is that it introduces us to Let's Move to Cleveland,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal.
And so yeah, we're talking about another live album. Does Humor Belong in Music?
Because what I hate is like Zappa's Zappa's 84 tour. He must have been incredibly proud of the 84 tour. He must have thought that was like the greatest Zappa tour of all time. Because easily, like 50% of the You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore series is the 84 tour.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll get into it more, but like what I hate about this is like it's Zappa. It's like he's trying to pander to this audience that it's hard for me to explain because I don't own any albums from this scene and I'm not a big fan of the scene, but it's the scene in the 80s of like the people who read Guitar Player magazine, of like your 80s shred metal.
Oh, like the Malmsteens and...
Exactly. Like, it's not the heavy shit, it's not Megadeth, it's not Metallica, it's not Venom, it's not... what was the name of that band? God, I cannot...
It's not Witchfinder General.
Exactly, Witchfinder General, or what is the name of the band? My Ben, who used to be on the show with me, was a huge fan. They were one of the first death metal bands. What was that? Was the name of the band Death? Was it actually Death?
I mean, probably. I know Death had been around a while.
Let me look this up. Well, they're this band. Yes, Death. That's what I'm thinking of. They're not Death. You know, who basically started death metal. It's not heavy in any respect. It's just sort of hard rock with a dude shredding the guitar, just shredding and shredding and shredding and shredding. Even though Guns N' Roses are glam metal in many respects, Guns N' Roses kind of fell into that as well. Like Slash definitely borrowed a bit from those guys.
Yeah.
Even though Slash had a totally different feel.
And a big
Guns
reason, too, is because we got Steve Vai in the band, you know?
Exactly. And it's like, and Steve Vai's first album is amazing because it sounds like Steve Vai doing Zappa.
But yeah, Steve Vai easily kind of just became one of those shredder guys. The shit's good, but I'm not trying to listen to all that shit. Like, that's why I would rather listen to Buckethead when it comes to just shredder guitar guys, because there's a lot more going on with Buckethead than your average guy, you know, but They're like, I love
And
John
when
5.
you look at some of the guys that Buckethead has worked with, like Buckethead has worked with dudes that you would not expect.
Yeah, he works with guys who are as equally talented as him too. So like everyone,
like Buckethead has done shit with Bernie Worrell and Bootsy Collins.
Yeah,
like,
a lot. And fucking
and John Zorn.
Yeah, John Zorn, and fucking Bill Moseley with the cornbug stuff.
One of the dudes from Painkiller.
Yeah, maybe Mike Patton.
Like, he's done shit with Brain all the time.
Yeah,
you know, like
he's just so connected to Claypool and his group of people.
Like, it's like Bucket. Exactly. I'm not a huge Buckethead fan, but I have a crazy amount of respect for Buckethead.
Yeah.
Because he has played with so many different people, you know?
Yeah. But,
like...
Fuck, so... Does Humor Belong in Music is up there with Baby Snakes as far as, like, some of the most pointless-ass sort of Zappa live albums? I mean, because number one...
It's like... Yeah...
The only things on here I can be like, alright, is I do like hearing Tinseltown Rebellion again, but it's not as good as the version on Tinseltown Rebellion. I mean, how many times do I want to hear Zoodalores? Like, all of the performances on this album are pretty average.
And I think this album introduces us to Hot Plate Hotel. Or Hot Plate Heaven at the Green Hotel.
Yeah, Hot Plate Heaven.
I
like Hot Plate Heaven. I love Cocksucker's Ball. And the version
I'm gonna need to listen to that because I don't remember how that goes.
Yeah, it's very show-tuney.
Well, that's what I like about the Tinseltown Rebellion version here is like they really play up the Tinseltown Rebellion Band.
Yeah.
That kind of Vegas quality to that part of the song. I like that, but like, yeah, the Tinseltown Rebellion version of that is so much better than the version on here.
Yeah, and then I really do like the version of WPLJ on here, but nowhere near as good as the original version. Is it on Burnt Weenie Sandwich?
Burnt Weenie Sandwich. And the thing about Let's Move to Cleveland is, like, I love Let's Move to Cleveland, but the definitive version of that song is the 88 band version of it.
Yeah, and which album is that on?
It's on either Make a Jazz Noise Here or The Best Band You've Never Heard in Your Life. Those two albums I have not heard in years.
Those two are fantastic.
They are phenomenal, but I've not heard them since maybe 2015.
Yeah, those two I love to death. And
Whipping Post, those two I actually don't even own.
And Whipping Post is an Allman Brothers song, so it's really funny to me that, you know, he did all this...
But that was on Them or Us.
Yeah, and it's just funny to me that he does a lot of shit-talking to the jam band scene. But...
Because, like, you could easily look at 80s Zappa, especially live, and be like, you are hitting those jam band notes.
But yeah, Whipping Post becomes a staple in his live performances, and it's like, you know Allman Brothers were a jam band, right?
Exactly, and it's like you also know that you are doing that jam band thing of like, we're going to play the opening, I'm going to do a guitar solo for 17 minutes, we're going to do the closing bit, and it's like, I hate to say it, but like when Zappa does that, I would rather listen to Fish. I would rather listen to the Grateful Dead.
Which, not gonna lie,
listen to Blind Melon. Listen to Frank Zappa play the opening to, I don't know, play the opening to Montana, and then shred for 25 minutes before you close Montana.
Which is like, there's like nothing wrong with it, but like we said before, man, if we want to hear live Zappa, I want to hear everybody. You know, I don't, you know, do an 8-minute solo. You're a guitar guy, you know, but let everybody have equal time to dick around and show their worth.
And the thing is, like, it's those complaints of mine. They're complaints I have not because he did that in concert. I don't mind, you know, if I were to somehow, through some absolute bizarre chronological miracle, if I were to somehow be at a Frank Zappa concert in 1984, I would be happy to be there. And had I been a Zappa fan at the time, I would have been happy just to see the man.
Yeah.
But it's putting tracks like that up in this series that's supposed to be the highlights of your live stuff, where I can be like, man, you could have given us an amazing version of, like, you could have given us an alternate Billy the Mountain, or a cool live version of Disco Boy, or, you know, like Inca Roads version 7.0, you know?
Yeah, you know,
like some of the stuff you did with Captain Beefheart, like.
Yeah, a big complaint of mine when it comes to this big string of live albums is the fact that there's not a whole lot of classic Zappa in there. Like, it's, you know, a lot of these albums coming up are just so similar.
Well, that's what I'm biting my tongue as much as I can.
Yeah, me too.
But it's like you had so much in your vault at this point where you could have dropped multiple albums of Classic Mothers live, and to just throw so much stuff from your 80s band at because I'm going to say this right here, clear it off the table. What annoys me about Zappa in the 80s is that Frank was one of those motherfuckers. He was like Rob Zombie or Marilyn Manson, where whatever product he was pushing at the current moment in time, he was like, it's my best material I've ever released. Like, he was that kind of guy, where, like, some artists can look back, like David Bowie, for example, could look back on their back catalog and say, this was better than others, you know, what I'm doing now doesn't quite measure up, etc. Zappa was one of those guys where whatever he was doing right at the moment was his best stuff, and he had nothing but contempt for anybody who thought what he did before was better.
Yeah, and you kind of do get that, especially when they do kind of play early Classic Mother stuff. They kind of run through it really quick.
Exactly.
Just to like be like, okay, we played it onto Bobby Brown Goes Down, you know.
Yeah, or like, we played Idiot Bastard Son. It's time to play Yahozna for 15 minutes, bro.
Yeah, seriously. And then I really am not a fan of this version of Trouble Every Day. I don't think any version I've heard is as good as the original. Just that freak out sound, that 60s fucking almost hippie rock sound of Trouble Every Day.
That
so
almost
good.
Bob Dylan blues sound.
Yeah.
Like, what I love about the original Trouble Every Day is that it is very front and center with the lyrics.
Yeah.
It is
like, this one is almost playing it up for laughs.
Exactly, like it's
even with the I'm so sick of
because it's
seeing MTV, like he changes the line to MTV, and it's like, I get it, you didn't like MTV, but it's almost like this.
Oh God,
This
that
version of the
gets into one of
song.
my personal pet peeves about live performances.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I hate when artists like shift the lyrics completely or ad-lib in the middle of songs. Like when you get to 80s Genesis, to bring them up again, one of the things I hate about the Phil Collins era of Genesis, because for those of you who have not listened to our version of Speaker Brains for long, I am a massive apologist for 80s Genesis.
He is.
I am somebody who enjoys all but one of the Phil Collins Genesis albums, because We Can't Dance sucks. But when Phil took over live, he would mess with the lyrics and he would throw in like ad-libs that do not work. They sound awful. I'm like, no, this does not go here in the middle of Supper's Ready. Although, actually, I don't think he ever ad-libbed in Supper's Ready. I think they were pretty reverential about Supper's Ready. Because, just to finish the thought, the bizarre thing about Phil Genesis is that Phil Collins Genesis would be like, yeah, we're playing all of our 80s hits, Turn It On Again, Invisible Touch, yeah. And then in the middle of their shows, they would throw in shit from The Lamb and, like, weird stuff from the Gabriel era, and it was weird. Like, they never quite lost those prog roots, and you've got to imagine like some yuppies at Genesis concerts in the 80s were probably like, what the fuck are they playing now? But yeah, so a major pet peeve of mine is when you shift lyrics on your live stuff to, especially when it's a classic track like Trouble Every Day.
Yeah.
And like you said, like it's like we said on Clint Eastwood on our last Gorillaz retrospective, like there are certain tracks where it's like the live version is never as good.
Yeah.
And to me, Trouble Every Day is one of those, because the original Trouble Every Day is about the lyrics. It's about a stream of consciousness rant about this uprising in the downtrodden slums of LA that had just happened when Freak Out was released.
And it is still relevant today.
Incredibly, especially that middle eight bit where he's like, something, people, I'm not black, but there's a whole lots of times I wish I could say I'm not white.
Yeah, like that's a line that hits me so hard.
It's hit me since I first heard that album 5 or 6 years, probably 6 or 7 years ago now. And it hits me harder than ever with everything that's going on today.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, this is just a useless fucking... it's just another one for completionists. That's all I can say.
It's like, to finish my thought about Trouble Every Day, what annoys me about every other version of that song is that every other version, it's about the groove.
Yeah.
It becomes about that da-na, 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 da-na.
Yeah.
And not so... The lyrics become more just like filler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it doesn't have that punch. It doesn't, it, like I said, it just kind of feels more like it's played for laughs as opposed to,
exactly.
being pissed off.
Exactly, and it's like, man, why did you even play this anymore?
And it's like out of all the classic early Mothers tracks, you give us this one. And
this is the one that's a concert staple.
And you fuck it up.
Like, exactly. It's like, but yeah, this album is a 4 for me.
Yeah, it's I can go down to a 4. I was gonna say 5, but no, it's a fucking 4. It is just unnecessary, especially when it comes to his live albums, because there's just no performance on here that brings anything new to what you've heard before. Like I said, the only ones I really get into are Let's Move to Cleveland, Cocksucker's Ball, Hot Plate Heaven at the Green Hotel, you know. I mean...
Let's Move to Cleveland, yeah.
Yeah, it's just... You know, how many times do I want to hear Zoodalores? Fucking love the song, but dude, you got so much. You have so much. And this
like,
is...
the thing with...
This is a 10-track live album. There is no meat to it. Like, all his other live albums are, like, hitting, double disc. But there are single disc live albums, like Broadway the Hard Way, that every minute of it is phenomenal.
Well spent, and it's like, with Let's Move to Cleveland, it's like, that track almost hits the same space as, like, Little House I Used to Live In.
Yeah, it does.
Especially the 88 version. So it's like, why did you put this on this nothing little live album you only released in the UK? Like, moving on to Jazz from Hell.
Jazz from Hell, which is sadly the last actual official studio album released before he died.
Yeah, like, he just gave up on studio albums in the mid-'80s. Like,
and, you know, thankfully, he spent a lot of time working on Civ 3, which is the follow-up to this and a continuation of Lumpy Gravy. Because, man, I can't wait to get to Civ 3. Like, it's a phenomenal piece of work.
And what's weird to me is that he recorded a follow-up to this that was not released until the 2010s.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Like,
is it one of the Joes?
I think it's feeding the monkeys at Mia Mason or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he recorded a follow-up to Civilization called Dance Me This, which was not released until 2015.
Yeah.
So basically almost a full 22 years after the man had died.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And, you know, I like a lot of the post-death Zappa releases. I'm mostly a bigger fan of the Project Object releases. But a lot of these newer ones they've been putting out where it's like, boom, 6 discs of everything that he recorded for this album. You know, I'm like, ugh, $70.
Well, at least with the ones where it's like 6 discs of 15 Zappa performances from 1974.
Yeah, you know, and I'm like, you know, maybe there's a reason he didn't put this out.
I could get down to that. If I was obscenely wealthy, I would probably buy those.
Yeah, I want to buy them. I really do, but I'm like, $70-something for this awesome Zappa in New York package. Like, damn it.
It's like
the Hot Rats one they just came out with.
Yeah, it's like I could buy REM's entire discography at my local used CD distributor for that price.
Yeah, seriously. I'm like, you guys are getting a little out of hand here. I think the Hot Rats one comes with a Zappa Land board game, and I'm like, that shit is cool. I love bullshit like that.
That is amazing.
Say what?
I said that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, I love bullshit like that with, like, special releases. But at the same time, I'm never gonna play it. Like, it's gonna sit in the box.
Like, I think the best one like that I've ever heard of, or at least the funniest to me, was Rammstein putting out that was it their last album before the new one where the super mega ultra deluxe edition was like 5 dildos?
Yeah, the Liebest für alle da, yeah.
Liebe ist für alle da, yeah.
Yeah, I am here for that.
It's like, that's hilarious to me. It's like such an absurd deluxe edition to anything.
Yeah, I love the shit out of that. But Jazz from Hell is almost straightforward Sinclair album.
It is a personal favorite out of all of his 80s stuff for me.
Yeah?
Like, it is, to me, it is one of the best albums he put out in the 80s. Like, it is top 4, easily.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's probably number 3 or number 4 to me. And it's like, when I was listening to it last night, I hadn't listened to it for a while, for a couple years, honestly. And number 1, I was listening to it as I was sort of drifting off, and I was like, that is an incredibly trippy album to fall asleep listening to.
Yeah.
Number 2, I always forget how dance this album is.
Yeah, it's fucking got a lot of, for some weird sing. Like, and what's crazy is, like, the Synclavier stuff isn't all that weird on here. Like, none of it gets real creepy. Some of it almost kind of sounds like something you'd hear on, like, Miami Vice.
Well, I believe it was the night school. He had, and I forget the details of what it was going to be. Basically, he had a unpitched, he pitched a TV show to some network, and it was either going to be like an early reality TV show or something like it. I think it was going to be like an early reality TV show starring the Zappa family.
Wow.
He pitched something like that to one of the networks, and they didn't buy it. But I believe it was the night school was supposed to be the theme to that.
Could you imagine a world before the Osbournes where we got the Zappas? Oh my god. But yeah, I dig this album. But yeah, it's not one that impresses me all too much. I mean, I just I don't play it all that much either. Like, I played it a lot when I first got it, but, I don't know. It's, like, it's not bad. And it's, you know, it's good. I don't know. It's just, I feel very, like, there's tracks on here that I love. Like, I really like G-Spot Tornado and Masagio, Galore. But a lot of it I kind of forget about, weirdly enough. Saint
Etienne is like, it's just a random guitar solo.
Yeah, it's the only live instrument song on here, whereas everything else is...
And I like that, because it's like weird computer music. Here's a little guitar track for those of you who don't like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, it kind of throws the flow off for me, because by the time it gets here, I'm already full in on the weird computer music. And when that comes in, it's kind of like hitting a brick wall for me. And then we
really is.
We end really cool with Masagio, whatever.
Galore.
Yeah, and I'm like...
What I love about that last track is that it, like, I've said this so many times on this video that I wish Zappa could have been, I guess, no, I don't necessarily even mean that he could have lived. I wish he could have been in good health in the early 90s. Because you get the sense that, like, he was so busy trying to finish Civilization Phase 3 before he died. And prepping all of this stuff for release before he died, that kind of took away from his ability to, like, actively partake in any kind of new music.
Yeah.
Because I would be fascinated to know what Zappa would have made of, like, the Orb, or Orbital, or the KLF, or or 808 State, or any of those early electronic bands, because some of this stuff on here was reminding me a little bit of that. Like, even like some of the Big Beat, because like the Big Beat stuff, you could easily look at the Big Beat stuff and be like, you know, it was a more populist, more readily accessible version of that early house and electronic sound.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a version of electronica that guitar dudes could get down to.
Yeah, it went from raves to the arenas.
Exactly.
But this album, I'll give it a 7. Like, it's a damn good Synclavier album, but weirdly enough, it's not, a lot of it isn't as interesting as the Synclavier stuff on Mothers of Prevention for me.
Yeah, it's like it's you're definitely right there. I wish that he had done a little more in that pseudo-industrial style he was doing on that album.
Yeah. But, my buddy Charlie fucking
hates
hates this album.
Yeah, I remember you told me that when I first bought this, like, must have been like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, like, he doesn't have a whole lot of Zappa albums, but this one
probably turned him off of getting more.
Oh man. But yeah, it's a 7 for me. I dig it. But it's not one I'm ever like, oh man, I'm gonna listen to some Zappa today. Oh shit, I'm gonna turn on Jazz from Hell.
You know, I'm gonna kind of agree with that. I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I'm gonna give it that 75 out of 10. Cause like I said, it's a personal favorite, but it's a personal favorite of Zappa in the 80s.
Yeah, true, and that's fucking saying something.
Like, and it's a personal favorite also because it is a bite-sized chunk of Synclavier, as opposed to Civilization Phase 3, which is 3 full-course meals.
Yeah. Civ 3 is a fucking beast.
It is a musical odyssey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I rate that a 7.5. You're right that it's not one that I turn on that often, but it's one that I really enjoy when I turn it on.
True.
So that brings us at last to what is, to me, one of the most interesting and yet underwhelming series of albums ever put out by anybody.
I can get down to that.
You can't do that on stage anymore albums.
I can totally, because I was actually, when I was going through my Zappa Odyssey a couple years ago, I actually couldn't wait to get to this series, because I was trying to go chronological, and when I got to this series, this is where I started to get a little burnt out. And it took me about, I didn't get Volume 5 and 6 until, hell, I believe last August.
Yeah, I think so.
And I still, haven't fully dove into those two. And, but you're right, it is such an interesting thing. I'm just going to do a series of live albums. And what I do like is the early CD versions were in the old school double case where it was 2 combined jewel cases, but then there was also a crate that you could buy to fit all 6 albums in. And that's cool as shit to me.
This first one was released as vinyl. It was I believe it was a limited edition, because this is mid '88. This is right around the time that they started to phase out vinyl.
Yeah. This is when CDs were being sold in 12-inch tall boxes.
Yes. Because the thing about vinyl is I don't think vinyl completely went away until the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But vinyl in the early to mid 90s was like, Get your CD and cassette versions of the hot new album. And for those of you fossils still following the music scene of today, we have a heavily compressed single disc version of our 65-minute album available on a vinyl record at 33.5 RPMs.
But this is actually a favorite of mine. At least the first disc.
Out of the series, yeah.
At least the first disc. Because the first disc is mostly comprised of the Flo and Eddie era of early Mothers. And I am fucking all about it. I gushed all over the Flo and Eddie era of Zappa on several of these Zappa podcasts ago, and I'm just happy to get more crazy ass, dirty, nasty, fucking vulgar ass, goddamn early Zappa from the Flo and Eddie scene, and
especially to hear the original Sofa #1.
Yeah, and the way it flows, because this is interesting Zappa tape manipulation to me, is because it starts off with the Florida airport tape where it's just them talking shit for a minute. Then you get into Once Upon a Time, which is a thing that I love about the Flo and Eddie era, where it's just improv. They're just a fucking improv troupe at this point. You know, they're up there, they're just saying, they're doing a skit, basically. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of times it didn't land, but I fucking dig it. Like, they're having fun, saying some ridiculous shit. And so Once Upon a Time runs into Sofa, and I'm like, I am fucking down with that.
And I think we even mentioned this in the I think it was part 3, that Sofa was from the Flo and Eddie era. And I love that you know, even though to me the definitive Sofa is the one on One Size Fits All.
Oh yeah.
Like, the space rock vibe of Inca Roads and the 2 Sofa tracks, like, to me, it's like, that vibe is so integral to that whole album.
Yeah.
That it almost, like, when we get to Volume 2, I'll talk about that, where something's missing when they do some of those tracks that wound up on One Size Fits All live. But, like, to hear that original version, even to hear, like, the Mammy Anthem, basically the instrumental backing track to the Thingfish main theme,
yeah,
more or less.
And what's crazy is, you know, there's not a whole lot of Flo and Eddie stuff on here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a decent amount, but you get, You Didn't Try to Call Me. You get a lot of classic stuff played in the later days, which is cool. And then, you know, I dig the Trying to Grow a Chin. And then you get this 69 version of Let's Make the Water Turn Black, Harry You're a Beast, and the Orange County Lumber Truck, which is, man, Let's Make the Water Turn Black and Harry You're a Beast, The Idiot Bastard Son, all those, man, I love We're Only in It for the Money. And whenever those were some of the most catchiest tunes that he has ever really made, that I'm glad are on this album, because that fucking na 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 na.
Yeah, every time he messes with early Mothers, it's like, yes, why didn't you do this more?
Yeah, it's like, it's such a nice fucking treat. And I love the shit out of that. Then we get the Groupie Routine, which is like, I like that way better on the album,
yeah, on the Fillmore album.
Yeah,
and then I love Ruthie, where it's a rewrite of Louie,
yeah,
about how Thunderwood was sick one time on tour, some dude tried to get into her room and she kicked him in the nuts.
Yeah, and Babette is a really good doo-wop track. And Big Swifty getting...
I'm the Slime. That's one where I get what, like you said on that, when we did the episode that song is originally on, it gets to be one of those where it's like, how many times am I going to hear this on one of these albums?
Seriously, especially with just the amount of archive shit that's on here, it's like, why? But hearing Big Swifty was really great.
Yeah.
But I also...
And the medley of the whole first side of Apostrophe.
Yeah, when you get the Don't Eat the Yellow Snow suite, that shit is really cool. 20 minutes of Don't Eat the Yellow Snow. And it's like, it takes forever to get to my favorite part, which is the, it's St. Alfonso's pancake breakfast, where I stole margarine. Yeah, fucking, takes a while to get to my favorite part of the song.
The Bringo carts blew up the latrine.
Yeah, fucking love that shit. And so it's awesome hearing some of these that don't get played a lot on some of these live albums. And then Disc 2. Disc 2 has a lot of stuff I like too. Plastic People, we get the original version of Plastic People because they always played it in the tune of Louie Louie. But they had to, change it up for the album, the original album, but to get the Plastic People. Oh, but it's cool.
I don't like how the original Plastic People, you could easily say it's a rewrite of Louie Louie.
Yeah.
But it's Louie Louie turned inside out.
Yeah.
And they're singing off key. It's like, plastic people, oh baby, something, something. Whereas this version is just Louie Louie.
Yeah, there's a plastic people.
It's like, plastic people, bum bum, bum bum bum, bum bum.
And he's just talking. He's like, yeah, this is that other song. It's a whole bunch of other songs. But I do like hearing this version. It's like a fabled version to me. But then Torture Never Stops. Like, god damn it. Another one. How many times?
15, almost 16 minutes.
Like, I fucking love this song. But does it have to pop up?
It on, 9 live albums.
Yeah, why has it gotta pop up? The only other time I like this song, other than off of the Zulors album, I like the version that Captain Beefheart sings, and I really like the Mammy Nuns version, the Thingfish version.
The torture never stops.
Yeah, and it's like, every other time I'm like, here's this damn song. But yeah, fucking, but what is it? Sweet, Sweet Lilena?
Lilena, I don't know.
But I like that, and I love getting Oh No, like a full version of Oh No.
Oh yeah.
Because that's another.
Yeah. I love the Deathless Horsey.
Yeah.
Just for that title.
Yeah. Because
I kind of like this version of Dumb All Over a little more than the version on You Are What You Is.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck because I really do love the versions of Dumb All Over and Heavenly Bank Account on here. But I'm more familiar with the versions on You Are What You Is.
And then it's like, this, the last two get to what we were talking, even me in my video through the Dangerous Kitchen, that gets to my point. Like, he must have been so proud of the '84 tour. He must have thought that the 84 tour was the greatest Zappa tour of all time. Because he put so much from the 84 tour on all of these live albums.
Yeah.
And it's like, give me some of the mid-70s Mothers, man. Give me some Flo and Eddie. Give me some late 70s Zappa. Like, so I don't have to hear the synths going, "Bwam!" and Ike going, "Yeah!"
And those
on every track.
those crazy fucking Sam Kinison style screams. Wow! 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 Like, that shit's heavily on a lot of that 84 and Broadway the Hard Way kind of live stuff. But I do like how the album ends with Sofa number 2 because it ultimately begins with Sofa number 1.
Yeah, and it ends with Sofa number 2, which I think is hilarious because they invert the pattern on One Size Fits All.
Yeah.
Whereas Sofa number 1 on One Size Fits All is the instrumental. Sofa number 2 has the vocals. I like that they invert that.
Yeah. That's really cool. But what would you rate You Can't Do This on Stage Anymore, Volume 1?
It's an 8.5 to me.
Yeah.
Like, as a proof of concept for the whole series, I really like it.
Yeah.
It shows a lot of promise that the series itself did not, to me at least, until you get to Volume 6, did not really deliver on. Either Volume 5 or 6, I forget whether it's 5 or 6, the one where the whole first disc is the original Mothers. I think it's 6, or 5, maybe it's 5. God, I'm going to look this up on Wikipedia right now. We're going to clear this up. Right here, right now, just like Jesus Jones told us.
Right
okay,
here,
it's Volume
right
5.
now. Ah.
Where the whole first half of Volume 5 is classic Mothers from back in the 60s. And then Disc 2 is all the 82 band. Like, outside of Volumes 2 and Volumes 5, I think Volume 1 is definitely my favorite.
I could totally feel you on that, 8. Like you said, it really proves what this series set out to be, that it maybe didn't really realize. But the series started off pretty strong. And
it really did.
And just hearing a lot of those early classic tracks and bits of the Flo and Eddie era is a nice treat compared to, you know, a lot of the other live stuff that was happening. I mean, already it's a million steps above Does Humor Belong in Music?
Oh my God, yeah.
But the next one is You Can't Do That on Stage.
Volume 2.
The Helsinki concert.
But, being as that we have talked for an hour, almost 2 hours, I need a break to go do some stuff, and I think you probably would like a smoke break, so...
Yeah, I do gotta take a piss.
So I think it's appropriate that we cut right here for the time being.
Yes, and we will be back.
After these messages.
Right
so
now...
we are on to You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 2, just as we promised before we left the first time.
Yeah, and this one is great because it feels like, even though they aren't the Roxy and Elsewhere performance, it almost feels like a continuation of that album.
It's almost like Roxy 2, or more accurately, I suppose chronologically, Roxy 1.5.
Yeah, it's a fantastic fucking live performance. And I don't think a lot of these that are on Roxy and Elsewhere, I don't think these are as good as the ones on Roxy and Elsewhere, but damn it, they're all pretty fucking good on here.
Yeah, it's one where, you know, I want to say the Roxy and Elsewhere versions are from 73, and this was 74. So they were able to really, you can hear how much tighter the band was by that point.
Yeah.
And while I agree with you that the ones that are on Roxy are, to me, mostly way better, I do really love... to me, this is the best of the whole series. You can't do that on stage anymore.
Yeah, it's my favorite out of the whole series. Whereas, like, this one, both discs are pretty damn phenomenal.
Yeah, it's like, you could make little complaints, like, a lot of Dupree's Paradise is the same kind of thing as the old Jasmine's Tango at the Bebop Church or something like that, where it's like, the band is just sort of vamping in the background while the band members are like, we are going to do something weird. We are going to say something funny. You know?
Yeah.
For almost 24 minutes. You could easily make that accusation, but by the same token, you know, you have Approximate, which is amazing. You have the Dog Breath variations in Uncle Me.
Yeah.
You have the iconic, which I am so glad they captured on tape, Whipping Floss version of Montana.
Yeah.
Where somebody, they were going to play Montana.
Whipping Post!
And somebody in the audience yells out, Whipping Post! And so they do a version of Montana where, like, he changes it around, so where he's like, growing my lonely whipping post.
Yeah. And you just gotta love the on-the-fly spontaneity.
Like, where instead of being like, I would floss the wax and something, bring it down and bring it to town, it's like, I would bring it to town and tie it to the whipping post and beat the ever-loving shit out of it, or something like that. Exactly, like, the spontaneity that he was able to rewrite those lyrics on the fly and have it sound as good as it does.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great live album, and yeah, definitely the best in the whole You Can't Do That on Stage series.
I love the version of Redunzel that's on here.
Yeah. I mean, you get Inca Roads, you get fucking, goddamn, what is that? Echidna's Arphapu, yeah, I can never pronounce that. You got Pygmy Twilight, fucking Room Service, The Idiot Bastard Son, another version of Cheapness, which I fucking love Cheapness. And
that makes me wonder, because we briefly said, because neither of us, to this day, at least to my knowledge, I can't speak for you, I have never heard the original unremixed version of Cheapness on the Roxy album.
Yeah, neither have I.
But there's a version of, it's a remix on Roxy, and there's a part of Cheapness where it gets sped up. And it's the one where it's, I forget what it is, but it's where it goes into the, he's got a great big poodle thing, he's got a great big hair thing, and then it turns into the, go to the shelter, my baby, go to the shelter, my baby. That's not sped up on here. And it makes me wonder if the Roxy version was originally like the version of Cheapness on here. But like you said, I like the version on Roxy better, because, like, in this version, like, instead of being, like, the monster known to the people around these parts is, what is it, like, Phrenobulax is what he calls it on the Roxy album. He's like, something like, known to the people of these parts is Fido. Or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, aw, that's so much less creative and funny.
But, so what would you rate this one?
I'd give it a 9.
Yeah, me too. 9 all the way. Hardcore 9. It's one that shows, too, like, this concept could be fantastic. Instead of live bits of random performances, we get one big, massive performance.
It's like you said, even though it's not one show, it sounds like one show, and this, to me, is what I wish this whole series had been more like.
Yeah.
I wish it had been more like, here's a show or a series of shows, because apparently the working title was the Helsinki Tapes.
Yeah.
Which would have been way more accurate to what it actually is. So, yeah. What do you rate it? Do you give it a 9 too?
Yeah, it's a 9 as well. And so we are now in the last 2 albums. And definitely a personal favorite of mine it's not a studio album, but out of all the live stuff he was putting out, this is, there's 3 live albums of his late 80s stuff that, to me, are like top 3. Away from the You Can't Do That on Stage and Broadway the Hard Way. I love...
Little backstory here, just to drop it out there so we don't have to spend a whole bunch of time next time talking about it. These 388 albums, they're from the last Frank Zappa tour ever, basically.
Yeah.
He put together a band that was one of his best bands in my book. Like, in many ways, you could almost say, like, it's appropriate that we went from Volume 2 to this, because you could easily say the 88 band is almost like the return of the Roxy sound.
Kinda, yeah.
Like, the horns are way in, the synths are way out. It's more about jazziness and that vaguely Steely Dan 70s sleaze quality is not as much there as it was in the Roxy band, but it's still definitely there.
Oh, yeah.
And basically I forget whether he toured Europe or America first. He toured it was either Europe or America. He did a couple shows, and basically they recorded enough for one single album and 2 double albums, and there was some sort of issue. There was some sort of personality conflict with the band. The band, like, mutinied mid-tour, where, like, I think it was that, like, his second in command on that tour alienated a lot of the band, and they were like, Frank, we don't want to tour with this guy. And Frank was in failing health, I think, by that point. He had maybe just found out he had cancer, or it was just before he found out he had terminal cancer, and was like, okay, drop the whole tour, and that was the end of him ever touring ever again.
Yeah. But damn it if they didn't put out some phenomenal live albums to me. These 3 live albums, sadly, 2 of them we're not going to be talking about today. But those 3 live albums, for his 80s live albums, those are up there with the quality of the like Roxy and Elsewhere and Live in New York, as far as like the 70s live albums go. Like, this is some of the best fucking live material, new live material at that, out of his all of his 80s shit that was put on tape at that point. I love every minute of this album. It is so fucking mean. And it's one of them things where, you know, I wasn't there. You know, I was about 2 years old at this point when this came out. So I am not familiar with a lot of the politics he's talking shit about. You know, I wasn't there for Reagan. I wasn't there for Nixon. But his, I was sort of there for the Pat Robertson and the Tammy Faye Baker and Jim Baker stuff because of my grandparents. So hearing him just talking all this shit about all that stuff is so fucking fun. And I mean, the song "Jesus Thinks You're a Jerk," holy fuck. Just this album all the way through.
Amazing.
It's just so fun. So fucking fun. I
remember when I was first mentioned this probably 4 episodes ago now. I was introduced to Zappa by a friend's dad. And I remember he was like, yeah, apostrophe, 70s stuff. Also, check out Jesus Thinks You're a Jerk. But I agree with the politics, like, again, to throw in some references, my major, my area of specialization in my major was later American political history, you know, after the Second World War. So I get most of the references, but there are a couple, like, when he does Rhyming Man, and he's dissing Jesse Jackson. I had to look into that.
Rhyming Man. I fucking love Rhyming Man.
All in tan. Like, I had to look into that.
Rhyme on this.
Yeah, I had to look into that. Because it was like, Jesse Jackson ran for president, but he was knocked out in the primary before he could even get to the president. He wasn't the nomination. So it would be like if I wrote a diss track to, like, Bernie Sanders or Buttigieg, and then in 35 years, somebody's like, who the hell is Bernie Sanders and why is this guy singing about him?
Yeah, seriously. But
or like if I wrote a diss track about Marco Rubio, you know, it's like, so apparently the backstory to that is that, like, Jesse Jackson ran for president. He claimed he was there when King got shot and that Martin Luther King died in his arms.
Yeah.
Which I guess was not actually true. And then he also was, like, super buddy with Louis Farrakhan and was kind of racist to Jewish people, and that cost him the primary.
Yeah.
So, like...
But, man, I love... Huh?
It reminds me a little bit of when I used to occasionally, in the recommended for YouTube, somebody would post episodes of, you know, the Land of Confusion video from Genesis?
Yeah.
The people who did the puppets for that, there was a whole TV show.
Yeah, they were talking about
British
bringing it
TV
back,
show
too.
Called Spin.
They were talking about doing
Just brought back.
Say what?
Occasionally I would catch old episodes and be like, there would be jokes, like they would fun of Michael Jackson or Sylvester Stallone or David Bowie, and I would understand that. But they would be like, Prince Andrew in latest sex kerfluffle with insert random 1980s British celebrity, and I would be like, what is this? And parts of this album are like that. You know?
Yeah, it was like, what are it's like, because I think the biggest one I don't necessarily understand is, or at least the reference, is Everett Koop I guess he was the new Surgeon General in Promiscuous, but
Yeah.
I love that track. The first and only time you hear Zappa do some rap. It fucking, I was like, this is something I'm surprised he didn't fuck with sooner. Like, it's one of them things where it's like, he never really fucked with country music, but whenever he fucked with country music,
really
it was
did
so
rap.
good. And so hearing this, I'm like, damn, I wish you could have done a lot more with rap, but yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's like for 88, like early to mid 88, like that's some good sounding boomer hip hop. Like most of the like old artists from the 60s, if they messed with hip hop, they weren't doing it until like 92 or 93.
Yeah, and most of the time it wasn't good.
Exactly, like after the West Coast stuff had already become blown up and become huge. And, you know, after Run DMC had long made, like, because this is like the year after Run DMC did that massive collaboration with Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Or wasn't that 87 or 88?
It's at least got to be around the same time.
Around that time.
Because this is definitely when hip-hop was just now starting to get really big.
And for what I guess I was noticing is I'm like, the backing track sounds really good for something that was supposed to be hip-hop in 1988.
Yeah. But
I think what that was trying to talk Reagan administration, like, it took them until 87, 88 to even really acknowledge AIDS. And when they did, it was like, don't have sex outside of marriage.
Yeah.
Don't have anal sex. Only do in the missionary position.
Yeah.
You know,
but,
that kind of thing.
I love the way this album starts with Elvis has just left the building. Love the fuck out of that track. Planet of the Baritone Women is really good. I like the sort of...
Any kind of pain, man. That goes...
So what?
80s TV theme to, like, killer guitar solo.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is, but the guitar solos on the 88 tour are way better to me.
Yeah, like, I don't know, just something about the 88 stuff. Everything is, like, fucking top-notch.
Because I guess he didn't, like, supposedly he did not touch the guitar for, like, 4 years. Like, he put down the guitar at the end of the 84 tour, and he did not pick it up again until he was getting ready to do the 88 tour. And I think you can kind of hear that because he has a different touch in the 88 band that I think is, in a way, it's closer to the way he sounded before he got thrown into that orchestra pit.
Yeah, I can totally see what you're saying.
Like, it's closer to the... it's closer to, like, the classic Mothers and the Flo and Eddie guitar sound than it is to post-Roxy Zappa. And I think a part of it, from what people I know who play guitar have told me, is that they're like, oh yeah, he's not hitting the strings as hard as he is
Yeah.
on some of the other albums.
But, I love the shit out of Jesus Thinks You're a Jerk, Dickie's Such an Asshole. But Ryman Man is a major favorite because, yeah, it's this country song, but then it throws in all these random ass musical stings from other songs like Mission Impossible, Hava Megiddo, fucking, like, it's so crazy. And it's like, damn, you know, that's the live Zappa shit that I've been missing. And just, I don't know, I love it when, I don't know who's doing this voice, but whoever does that exaggerated country singing voice
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
fucking good.
Well,
love it. Because you get it on Elvis Has Just Left the Building, and you get it on this song, and then you get a good bit of it on the Best Band You've Never Heard album, too. But just that rhyme in my
part of what I love about this tour, and particularly this album, is that like Ike Willis steps back a bit.
Yeah,
they bring in other people to sing, because I love Ike Willis, some Zappa stuff, but when you get into the 80s and he is the only featured vocalist on most Zappa albums,
yeah, that is
and he
true.
sort of just becomes the voice of Frank Zappa, and I hate to say it because I love Ike Willis. A lot of the stuff he sings on is not grade A Zappa, it's like grade B and C.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you get like on Elvis Has Just Left the Building, or a lot of this stuff, and even like I love that, like, it's so political, like the Untouchables, like all this silly stuff, like he's like, get those big sport coats with the big lapels, they're back, they're fashionable, get them on, we got to take these guys down, and like he's naming off like Nixon and Reagan, and like I love where he's like, Bush, you're a wimp. I'm sorry, you're a wimp.
Yeah, then, dude, I love, what is it, Why Don't You Like Me?
Yes.
Basically a redone version of Tell Me You Love Me, but it's about Michael Jackson, and it's fucking hilarious. Michael is Janet, Janet is Michael. Oh my god. They're talking about
Jermaine is a Negro.
Oh my god. And they're talking about his deflated nose years before that was cool to talk about.
Like 20 years before that happened.
Yeah, it was like, that's...
Frank did not live to
He's
see
white,
that
Jim.
happen.
He's white, Jim. Like,
yeah.
Oh my god. Fucking years before that shit was, like, topical.
And it's... What makes me laugh is, like, at this time, in 1988, Michael Jackson is still fairly dark.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
He's not, like, his original skin tone. Like, he's not, like, Thriller Michael Jackson. But you would look at, like, bad era Michael Jackson, and you would still definitely be like, this is a black man.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like when you get to, like, History Volumes 1, 2, and 3, Michael Jackson, where it's like, this is a raceless, androgynous homunculus with a high-pitched voice, moonwalking around, being accused of child abuse, you know?
Seriously. But then another cool moment is when Murder by Numbers from The Police comes on, and they get Sting out to sing it. Like, how cool is that? And Sting is...
I love how Sting is like... He's like, Jimmy Swaggart said that this was written by Satan and sung by Beelzebub, and then he's like, I wrote the fucking song.
Yeah, love the fuck out of that. Love Sting coming out there talking shit. And then they kill the song. Fucking...
He sings it with Zappa, and like, it was so funny. You said to me the other day, you're like, dude, I just bought Synchronicity by the Police. I never heard on the Zappa album.
Yeah, seriously.
And I can share that story too, because the first time I heard Murder by Numbers was on this album.
Yeah, seriously.
And I love how they rewrote What Kind of Girl to be about. I forget which one of those televangelists it was. One of them got in big trouble in the late 80s.
Yeah, I think it
turned out he
Pat
had been
Robertson.
soliciting prostitutes and sleeping around with people in the congregation. And
yeah, I think it was Pat Robertson.
I think it was, but I love how it's like, are being spewed upon by a hypocritical televangelist.
Yeah.
Like they rewrote, like, that to me is like that and Why Don't You Like Me, or it's like, it's a rewrite, but I will allow it.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny. And like, well, like you were saying about Planet of the Baritone Women, that's another one where it's like, I think I compare Easy Meat to that. Like, I would compare that to something like Easy Meat, where it's like, lyrically, I'm kind of like, what were you trying to say here, Frank? I don't quite understand what you're going for here. But I really like the music.
Yeah, the music is really good. This kind of,
and I like how
gypsy
it
kind of
gets
shit.
like almost opera.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Like, he brings in that guy, he's like, thus and such College of Music, 1970, everyone.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, I think every minute...
And, like, to me, like we said about...
Huh?
What were we saying?
I was just saying, every minute of this album is fantastic.
Definitely. Like, to me, like, most of the tracks on here, like, this is the definitive version of Hot Plate Heaven to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's the definitive version of... It's maybe the definitive version of Dickie's Such an Asshole.
Yeah, like, it all fits the best in context to what's going on.
What trips me out about Dickie's Such an Asshole is that when you listen to the original version of that from 73, like, at the end where, like, they're talking about Nixon getting impeached, he's like, Ronald, help me! And, like, they wrote that before Ronald Reagan was president. He was still only the governor of California at that time.
Yeah.
And, like, Zappa, like, almost predicted Reagan being president, like, in that sense.
Yeah, seriously.
Which is kind of weird.
But, you guys...
And, like, to me, the only track on here where it's like, you could get rid of it and I wouldn't mind is Outside Now.
Yeah, I mean...
I love that version of it, but it's like... I feel like this is lip service to this being a Zappa live album.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, yeah, it's got to be on here. But a big reason I like it so much is that's one of the only ones on here that's borderline familiar, that isn't fucked with, you know, like, everything else is kind of new and fresh, and if it's something we've heard before, it's a rewrite. You know, I mean, it's a fantastic fucking live album, just because anything that is a older song, they're changing it up and not playing it straight. But yeah, Outside Now is like one of the only ones that stays pretty standard. I mean, at least we don't get Torture Never Stops. At least we don't get Redunzel. At least, you know, at least we're not getting a lot of those same old tracks.
I get that.
But yeah, Outside Now, totally with you.
Like, this could easily, to me, like, this could be one of his Chic Your Booty kind of albums, where it's like, this started off as live, but you did a bunch of overdubs to it, and now it's a studio album, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, this easily fits into that. But it's definitely, to me, it's a very strong 9. It's up there with Roxy as one of my favorite Zappa live albums.
Yeah, definitely. It is easily a 9. It is essential listening as far as Zappa goes. And definitely out of the 80s stuff, it shows, yeah, there's a little hope in here.
Yeah, definitely. Like this is what kills me about the '88 stuff is like it shows me that like probably Frank Zappa in the '90s was going to be really good, and then we just didn't get to see that.
Yeah, sadly enough. So the next and final album we're talking about today is You Can't Do That on Stage Anymore, Volume 3. And this is where the cracks begin to show for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Because this done where I started to look through it and I'm like, this is almost entirely 84 or 82 stuff.
Yeah.
There's a few tracks from the Roxy era. There's, I think, one track from the Flo and Eddie era, but it's all with the exception of like this 3 or 4 track stretch where he drops like 4 alternate takes from You Are What You Is on us. It's like, to me, the highlight of this album is the version of Cocaine Decisions.
Yeah.
Where the song stops because there is a riot happening.
And you hear,
the Italian police are launching tear gas into the...
You straight up...
You hear the tear gas canisters
Yeah.
firing into the audience.
You just hear, doof. You hear people screaming,
Yeah.
and then he's like, we just want to play music. You just hear people screaming,
Please return
love
to
it.
your seats and calm down.
Yeah, and you're just hearing tear
And you hear
gas
him
canisters
saying a
being
bunch
shot.
of stuff in Italian. Like,
Yeah.
Which I assume is asking them to be peaceful.
Yeah, that's the really worth the price of admission here is to get that that last 3 or 4 tracks here that are from that Italian concert.
The alternate versions of like what trips me out is when because I listened to this morning and I listened to those alternate versions. I'm like, so You Are What You Is was originally going to sound a little closer to Joe's Garage before you changed some arrangements, huh, Frank? Because like those alternate takes sound less like You Are What You Is and more like a slightly heavier Joe's Garage.
Yeah.
To me, at least. Like, they're definitely, like, not as polished. Like, they feel like they were maybe unmastered.
Yeah.
But, like, they're pretty good. Like, they're definitely a one and done. But... You know, it's in, like you said, a lot of this album, that how many times am I going to hear category.
Yeah.
Like, I dig Bamboozled by Love.
Yeah.
How they roll.
Owner of a Lonely Heart in there.
For like 3 minutes, they on the Owner of a Lonely Heart. Like, they just da-ba-na-ba-na for like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, like that's cool. That's rad. That's different. But yeah, it's
but the Charlena.
Charlena is good.
Version of Charlena. But it like I said, it does, because it's Dweezil, it does the jam band thing. Like I was saying, it's like, we're gonna play the intro to Charlena. Dweezil's gonna jump for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, so that is the one where they
like,
introduced Dweezil at the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was what I was saying about those shred metal dudes. Dweezil Zappa, when he does his solo thing, when he's not being a tribute band for his dad, when he's not working with Weird Al to tribute his dad, Dweezil's own music is very much in that shred metal tradition.
Yeah.
He's very much in that Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai school of shred guitar, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like, I like it. I like that version. I don't mind that version of Charlena, but to me, the definitive version of Charlena is the one that ends Chunga's Revenge.
Yeah, like that. That's sort of the.
Like, there's something about that version, like even just the weird, like where it's like the weird, like in that song. Like, I miss them in every other version of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah.
It's like little stuff that I miss in every other version of that song. And it's like, you know, like Advanced Romance, like, to me on here, I like it, but it's not as good as the Bongo Fury version.
Yeah. Because the big thing for me is it's Captain Beefheart, man. It's Captain Beefheart that sells that song heavily with his style of voice. When it starts off with Captain Beefheart and it's like, no more credit at the liquor store. Like,
yeah, exactly.
He sounds like a fucking broke ass drunk dude.
And when they do when they do Bobby Brown Goes Down and chop out half the stuff that makes Bobby Brown Goes Down funny in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, they pretty much all they leave is the offensive parts of the song, and they don't leave the stuff that makes it funny in the first place.
Yeah.
Which is some of the sillier rhymes and whatnot, you know, mocking the culture of the time. Like, I got myself a leisure suit, and they replaced that with something else on here. You know.
And I really like Hands with a Hammer, a cool Terry Bozzio drum track.
Oh, that's so funny to me. And then, like, the Zoot Allures version on here is kind of fun because it's so different.
Yeah.
Like, it takes a few minutes to get started. I think Ride My Face to Chicago is hilarious.
Yeah, I love Ride My Face to Chicago, and I really like Carol You Fool, and I love Channa and the Bushwop. That's a fun little jam.
I will say Carol You Fool is one where it reminds me a little too much of some of the stuff on Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, where it feels a little too much like he's rewriting one of those doo-wop tracks he did on Freak Out.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that bugs me, and we'll talk about this. Maybe we already passed the point where we would have talked about this, but what bugs me about when he does Freak Out tracks, he does them in the style of Cruising with Ruben and the Jets.
Yeah, he doesn't go back to that the Freak Out version.
Where it's very straight doo-wop, and the irony is not there. And I love Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, but I think most of the fun of Cruising with Ruben and the Jets comes from how close aside from the fact that they're using 8 tracks and it's clearly 1968, it could easily be a doo-wop album from 1957.
Yeah.
And when you're just doing doo-wop with 80s instruments, it's like, I could listen to the Beach Boys in the 80s and hear a much shittier version of this, but, like, it would be by a band who, by that point, that was all they were really capable of.
Yeah. So what would you rate this album?
I will say, I want to add, I don't remember which track is it on here. Is it Charlena or Bamboozled by Love? Where right when the track is starting, Frank, for some reason, shouts, Battlestar Galactica!
Yeah. I
give this a 7. 6.5.
Yeah, it's a 6. Easy.
Because it's like, it just could have been so much better, you know? Like I keep ranting, it's like, his 80s, he put too much shit from his 80s bands onto these albums. Like, I know that in some cases, like, there wasn't a whole lot of material from the Flo and Eddie era, and a lot of what existed wasn't quite up to grade from a sound quality perspective.
Yeah.
You know, he was... Some of the Road Tapes series showed us that, like, he was sitting on quite a bit of full shows that he just wasn't satisfied with the sound quality of.
Yeah.
And that's why we didn't get those shows until the 2010s. But by the same token, I wish he would have just been able to accept that those shows weren't going to sound amazing and put them out anyway.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's like, I would have loved to have seen a world where, like, the Road Tapes Volume 1 you can't do that on stage anymore, or, like, he would have put out some Flo and Eddie shows, you know, like, give us more of that, more along the lines of Volume 2.
Yeah. Definitely. So the next episode, we got 9 albums to talk about, and there's a lot more better albums in that string of releases to me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, these were some of the... Man. But...
Yeah, next time is going to be way better.
Yeah, and it's going to be the finale of the whole Zappa shit, too, so, like...
Zappacast. Unless we someday decide to do, like, a Episode 7. The highlights of the stuff.
Yeah, the post-live Zappa. Or Zappa is dead.
Which we would have to choose the highlights from, because they have dropped so much live stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But shit. I got some shit we gotta do right now. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Zappacast.
See you all.
But we'll see y'all later.